October 2006, Lindsay Hawker, 22 years old, had just realized her dream of moving to Tokyo. Newly graduated in biology with honors from the University of Leeds, she wanted to have an adventure before starting her master's degree. The fascinating culture, such an incredible country, the students excited about their new English teacher. Everything seemed perfect. Lindsay shared an apartment in Shiba, a ward of Tokyo, with 2 other foreign teachers. She was organized, responsible, and kept in constant contact with her family in England. Every day she would take her bicycle from Shiba Station to return home after classes. She had a routine, an agreement with her apartment mates to always let each other know where they were, especially when meeting with strangers. 3 months after arriving in Japan, her parents, Bill and Julia, along with her sister Louise, visited her to celebrate her 22nd birthday. They celebrated at the iconic Tokyo Park Hyatt, the same hotel where Lost in Translation was filmed. It was surely a magical night, a memory they would cherish forever, because that would be the last time they saw their daughter alive. A few months later, in March 2007, something changed completely. Lindsay was at the train station, unlocking her bicycle as she always did, when a young Japanese man approached her. He claimed to be her student. Lindsay at first didn't recognize him, but responded politely. The young man insisted and said he wanted private English lessons, and she, as always, polite and helpful, ended up agreeing. Little did she know, this would be the worst decision of her life. Welcome to another episode of our Shocking Cases in Asia series. Today you will learn about the case of the man who changed his face to avoid being found by the police. A very intriguing case, involving foreigners, Japanese, and much more. It was just another ordinary day. Lindsay unlocked her bicycle and started pedaling towards her apartment, but the young man she had just met didn't leave. He began walking beside her. Lindsay pedaled faster and faster, but he kept up with her. "Where are you from? How old are you? What do you do?" The questions kept coming. His name was Tatsuya Ichihashi, and he was in excellent physical shape. He managed to run alongside Lindsay's bike the whole way to her apartment. When they finally arrived in front of the building, Lindsay tried to say goodbye politely, but she was interrupted by yet another question. "Could you give me private English lessons?" Lindsay said no. After all, she didn't know him. But Tatsuya insisted. He insisted so much that he at least asked for a glass of water. And Lindsay, perhaps out of politeness, ended up agreeing. She took him up to her apartment. Right at the entrance, she made sure to introduce him to her 2 roommates. It was a way to show she wasn't alone, and other people knew he was there. While serving the glass of water, Tatsuya took out a sheet of paper and a pencil. He quickly sketched a portrait of Lindsay. Then he wrote down his phone number and email address there. Before leaving, he returned to the subject of private lessons and offered to pay a good sum. Lindsay, who needed the money, thought about it a lot. She eventually agreed and set up a meeting for 4 days later in a public place. It seemed like a safe decision. But in this story, nothing would really be safe. Who was Tatsuya Ichihashi? Tatsuya Ichihashi was 28 years old. He was the son of an oncologist surgeon and a dentist. He came from a wealthy, successful family. Every month, his parents deposited 100,000 yen into his account, about $10,000. So he didn't need to work. He had graduated in horticulture, but never managed or even really looked for a steady job. Instead, he spent his days obsessed with physical exercise and martial arts. He trained all the time at the gym and cycled about 25 kilometers every day. But there was something very disturbing about his history. He already had a criminal record. He had been accused of assaulting an elderly lady during a robbery. And there was another very troubling pattern. He had a peculiar taste for Western women. Tatsuya was very familiar with foreign cultures. He had studied in Canada and frequented bars and cafes that were usually full of foreigners. He always tried to approach women using his talent for drawing and quick sketches. At first glance, he seemed harmless, a shy young man who liked art. But some women had noticed that something was very wrong. He had already been kicked out of establishments due to harassment complaints. His behavior was too persistent, too invasive as well. And now Lindsay Hawkins was about to discover just how far those boundaries could go. The first lesson and the fatal invitation. The appointed day arrived. Lindsay and Tatsuya met in a public cafe, as agreed. The first English lesson went smoothly. Everything seemed very normal until it was time to pay. Tatsuya searched his wallet, made a surprised expression, and said he had forgotten money at home. Then he suggested, "Why don't we go there together to get it?" Lindsay hesitated, but eventually agreed. They took a taxi together. When they arrived at the address, Lindsay asked the driver to wait. "It would be quick," she said. But the minutes passed. 5 minutes, 7 minutes. The taxi driver looked at the clock, then at the building. He decided to leave, and Lindsay was left alone. She was now in a suburban neighborhood of Tokyo, about to enter the apartment of a man she barely knew. But since the idea was just to grab the money and leave, maybe she didn't feel so threatened at first. She continued walking down the long corridor leading to the apartment. Tatsuya put the key in the lock, opened the door, gestured for her to enter. Lindsay went in, and the door closed behind her. And it was at that moment that everything changed. The disappearance. 48 hours passed. Lindsay had not returned to the police. She hadn't called, hadn't sent any messages. The two roommates started to worry. This wasn't normal. They always let each other know where they were. It was part of their agreement, the security code they had established. So they decided to call the police. The investigators arrived at the apartment and started asking a lot of questions. The girls talked about the strange encounter with that persistent guy and remembered the drawing. That sketch he had made of Lindsay, the phone number and email written on the paper. It was the only clue they had. The police then managed to trace the information. They discovered the address of Tatsuya Ichihashi. They were finally getting closer. The case seemed to have some kind of direction now. But when the agents arrived at the apartment to arrest him, Tatsuya was no longer there. He had fled. Inside the apartment, the police made a discovery that left them in shock. On the counter, a bathtub had been dragged out. It was covered in sand. A lot of sand. When they started to dig, they found what no one wanted to find. Lindsay's belongings were also scattered around the room. The bag, the wallet, the documents. Everything was there, abandoned. The apartment still told the story of the case, evidence of the things that had happened there. But Tatsuya had disappeared, and no one knew where he went. A 2.5-year escape. Tatsuya became the most wanted man in Japan at that moment. His photos were everywhere. Newspapers, television, posters spread across train stations and stores throughout the country. The police offered a reward of 10 million yen for information leading to his capture, but he simply vanished. What no one knew was that he had a plan. A very disturbing plan, in fact. He was going to completely change his appearance, and he wouldn't spare any effort to do so. First, he sought out plastic surgery clinics. He had a rhinoplasty, which is a nose surgery, to try to alter some features. Then he had another one, but that wasn't enough. Tatsuya knew he needed to do much more. So he himself started making changes to his body. He tried to make his lips thinner and did things I can't even describe here. He also wore masks to hide some of his scars, and during those 2.5 years, he lived like a ghost. He worked in construction using a fake name. He avoided security cameras. He never made eye contact with people. He changed cities constantly, whenever he felt someone was getting close to recognizing him. Sometimes he even dressed in women's clothing to throw off pursuers. Other times he used wigs and elaborate disguises. And the most disturbing part is that his parents continued sending him money every month. Knowing what their son had done, they helped him remain on the run. With the money he managed to save from working and what he received from his family, Tatsuya did something unexpected. He embarked on a pilgrimage to Buddhist temples on the island of Shikoku. He visited dozens of temples, prayed, and according to what he would later recount, he prayed for Lindsay to come back to life. He wanted a way to erase what he had done. Over 8,000 reports of possible sightings reached the police, even sightings outside Japan, like some in the Philippines. But none led anywhere. He was too careful. In 2008, the police began to lose hope. Some investigators even speculated that he might have. Lindsay's father, Bill Hawker, was furious with this statement. He thought it was an excuse to reduce search efforts. He felt the police were giving up. The family couldn't accept that. So Bill continued giving interviews, keeping the case alive in the media, putting pressure on the country. According to some rumors, the family even sought out members of the Yakuza. The Japanese mafia was asking for help to find this guy. And time went by. It had been over 2 years, and Tatsuya was still out there, free, until he made a mistake. The capture. November 2009, Tatsuya was at a plastic surgery clinic in Nagoya for yet another nose procedure. It was his second surgery in the same place. The clinic staff took photos of the patient, as was protocol, but something caught their attention. The scars on the left cheek, exactly where they had been removed, and that previous surgery on the nose. The combination was very specific, very familiar. They had seen that face before, on posters, on television. The staff sent the photos to the police. The news exploded. And finally, they had a concrete lead. Tatsuya knew he had been discovered. He panicked, rushed out of the hotel where he was staying, immediately cut his hair, bought a disguise kit with a fake beard, sideburns, and mustache. He needed to escape again, this time far away. He decided to go to Okinawa, an island in the south of Japan. From there, maybe he could leave the country. On November 10, 2009, Tatsuya arrived at the ferry terminal in Osaka. He was anxious. He was looking around everywhere. His boat to Okinawa was about to depart, but the police were already there. An officer approached, asked to see his documents, then asked the question, "What is your name?" Tatsuya remained silent for a few seconds. After 912 days on the run, after all the surgeries, disguises, he finally told the truth. Tatsuya Ichihashi. And then the hunt was over. In December 2009, through his lawyers, Tatsuya began to speak. He admitted to being involved in Lindsay's death, but claimed it had been an accident. He said he didn't intend to do it, and things just got out of control. The trial lasted a year and a half. During all this time, the gruesome details of this case were revealed to the public. The family followed every moment of the process, hoping for justice. In July 2011, the day of the sentence arrived. The Shiba court sentenced Tatsuya to life imprisonment. The Hawk family wanted even more, but the court decided otherwise. In Japan, even harsher sentences are generally reserved for people who have committed these acts multiple times. Since Tatsuya had no previous convictions, the law considered life imprisonment to be the appropriate sentence. The judge argued that he was 32 years old at the time of sentencing. There was still, theoretically, a possibility of rehabilitation, but the family did not agree. How can you want to rehabilitate someone who did all of this? Who was on the run for 2 years? Who changed their appearance to avoid capture? Who tried to destroy evidence? But the decision had already been made. Tatsuya would spend the rest of his days in prison. And in prison, he did something that shocked people even more. He wrote a book. The book was called Until the Arrest. It had 238 pages and was published by Gentosha. In it, Tatsuya detailed his life as a fugitive. He described the places he went, how he avoided being recognized, the disguises he used, talked about his attempts to change his appearance on his own, about seeing his face on wanted posters, about the constant paranoia of being discovered. And at the end of the book, he apologized. He said he wrote it as an act of contrition, as a way to try to make amends for the crime he had committed. But many people wondered, is this remorse real, or is he just sorry because he got caught? If he truly had no intention, why did he do all that? Why didn't he surrender and tell his side of the story from the beginning? His actions during 2.5 years on the run were not the actions of someone remorseful. They were of someone desperate not to get caught, someone willing to do anything to maintain freedom. Bill Hawker, Lindsay's father, said something in an interview that quite sums up who his daughter was. Lindsay was so kind that she could talk to anyone, even someone she didn't know. It was this kindness that made her such a beloved teacher. It was what led her to Japan, but it was also this kindness that put her in danger. Tokyo is one of the safest cities in the world. Japan has crime rates that are practically zero. But that doesn't mean danger doesn't exist. It just means it's easier to let your guard down. Lindsay's case shocked Japan, not just because of its severity, but because it showed that even in a place considered safe, there are predators. And they are especially dangerous because no one expects them. Today, more than a decade later, Lindsay's story continues to be told. Not to scare, but also to educate, to remind that kindness and caution are not opposites. It is a case full of details, and I hope you can take some lesson from it. Comment below what you think about all this, if you have ever had a similar experience with a stranger.